Fani Willis. Okay, let me go ahead and talk about Fani Willis really quickly because I meant to talk about this last week, but I never really had the chance. So basically, Fani Willis is the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, right? Services, Atlanta. And she brought forth this case. She's prosecuting this case against Donald Trump, the former president of the United States and the current GOP frontrunner for the 2024 presidential election. She brought forth the case against him for election interference. Remember back in 2020, after it was all said and done and it kind of looked like Trump was going to lose to now President Joe Biden, Donald Trump himself called the Secretary of State of Georgia. If you don't know, the Secretary of State of any state is in charge of the elections of that state. Raffensperger, I think is his last name. He ended up calling Raffensperger Secretary of State and said, I need to find 31,602 votes. What do you mean you need to find them? Meanwhile, the votes are counted. Georgia went blue for like the first time in ages. We got two senators, two Democratic senators, which I never thought I would see the day, where Georgia would vote for a Democratic president and have two Democratic senators all at the same time. Blew me out the water. And I feel like that alone proves that voting does work. He calls the Secretary of State talking about I need 31,000, And then do you guys remember January 6th? Okay. When the MAGA crowd decided that they were going to go to the Capitol up there in Washington, D.C. and yell out, hang Mike Pence, his own vice president, because Donald Trump and his team falsely told the American people that Mike Pence could kind of like stall the election or send the electors back or some lie he made up, when the vice president does not have that type of power, just something he came up out of his ass. So they went to the Capitol talking about some hang Mike Pence, and they wanted to, hang Nancy Pelosi. They wanted to kill the people in Congress and all of those things. And they wanted to take back their country. I mean, have you guys ever heard of a coup? Okay. Ever heard of a coup? That means you have a group of people who try to forcibly overtake the government. And so I personally believe that I think it's under the 14th Amendment, Donald Trump should be disqualified from running for office, any sort of office ever again, because it says that anyone who participates in an insurrection in any sort of way is barred from office. But yet he's the front runner for the GOP side. So I don't know how that works. But when it comes to justice and Donald Trump, it moves slowly. Okay. So January 6th happened, which I do believe Donald Trump encouraged. And then you had him calling up Georgia Secretary of State. I need 30,000 votes. I need 602 votes. I need this vote. The votes are counted. What are you talking about? What do you mean fine? Code word for, rig the election for me. And he's dumb because he's thinking, okay, well, the Secretary of State is a Republican. Of course he's going to, help me on the low. But do you know how big of a scandal that would be? Do you know that man wouldn't have gotten away with trying to find your 30,000 votes or whatever the hell it was? Right? That man wasn't going to do that. Not for Donald Trump. Thank God. Some of these Republicans in Georgia have a little bit of a brain, right? And so Fani Willis looked at that and said, looks like a crime. Stealing an election is a crime. Election interference is a crime. And it's being done by the most powerful man in the world, which is at that time the president of these United States, Donald Trump, who, might I mention, has expressed interest in wanting to be a dictator. Not only does he cozy up to the dictators and he compliments the dictators and rags on, the world leaders who believe in democracy. But he has expressed himself that he likes the attributes of a dictator and wouldn't mind being one. So what's clear to me, it should be clear to you, it should be clear to everyone that this man literally tried to steal an election, which I think is frightening, if you ask me. It's very frightening. And what a lot of people don't understand is because a lot of us have lived in this country for all of our lives, and so we believe that there are just certain freedoms and liberties that are just cemented into our society. Therefore, there's no possible way that we could revert to a society before we had rights. A lot of people think that. But the thing about a democracy is that the thing about any sort of rights is that it's not guaranteed. Okay. You have to work every day in order to uphold certain standards, to uphold certain systems. A democracy is not guaranteed, right? Just go back into history and study fascism and how these political leaders got an ounce of power, ended up influencing a whole lot of people, and slowly but surely became dictators. That could very much so happen in the United States. A lot of people don't understand that you have to maintain the democracy. The democracy is not promised to us. If we don't maintain the democracy, then a person like Donald Trump could possibly overturn the election, especially when he has the Congress kowtowing to him, when he has stacked the Supreme Court with all of his MAGA conservative folks, which we're probably going to be living with a conservative Supreme Court till the day I die. Okay. Elections have consequences. When you have other parts of government that don't check him and his executive powers, him as president, then it is possible for somebody to overturn an election and possibly overturn the next one and then possibly overturn the next one. And then you have a situation where we could still have elections every 4 years, but it doesn't mean that they're free and fair. I mean, look at Russia. They have elections in Russia, but only one man wins every single time, right? So that is why everybody should be concerned about this. That's why what Fani Willis is doing, prosecuting Trump for, there's actually 2 cases. I think one is in DC, if I'm not mistaken. It's the January 6th case. Okay. They want to get him on January 6th, that he spearheaded January 6th, the insurrection. And then you have the election interference case. And that's what Fani Willis is doing. And I feel like everybody needs to be concerned with this because it's scary. We had a man that tried to uproot the foundation of our country, uproot the foundation of our freedoms. And he could very well be president again in 2024. It's scary. A lot of people are not taking it serious. But at this point in time, I personally am preparing mentally for a Donald Trump presidency 2.0. Second term. It's scary. So that's why everybody needs to be paying attention to what's happening with Fani Willis. So back to Fani Willis. Fani Willis is prosecuting the case. She is, well, yeah, she's the DA. Well, I guess, is she prosecuting it? She's like the boss. And then she hires prosecutors to actually prosecute. Okay? Check me if I'm wrong. And Trump is doing everything in his power to kind of distract and make sure that this case kind of goes off the rails. So him and his team found out that Fani Willis had a romantic relationship with Nathan Wade, who was like the special prosecutor on the case, right? Now, I was kind of upset at Fani Willis because I just kind of feel like this is the case of a lifetime. I think he has 3 or 4 criminal cases that he was indicted with, and 91 indictments, but 3 or 4 separate, jurisdictions, right? And Donald Trump is the first president to be indicted. This is all very unprecedented, okay? And so if you are going to try to criminally prosecute the former president of the United States, who is known for escaping accountability at every turn, you have to do it right. It has to be methodical, and it has to be almost damn near perfect, right? Because this man does think that he's above the law, and half the country thinks that he's above the law as well. So it's easy for him to escape accountability. So if you're going to take that shot, it has to be damn near perfect. And now there's an appearance of impropriety. I think I said that right. Impropriety. Basically meaning there's an appearance of conflict of interest. Oh my God, Fani Willis is fucking her lead prosecutor? Even though there may not be nothing wrong with that, it just sounds scandalous. It's salacious. It's like, oh my God, Fani Willis. It automatically has people thinking that her case is corrupt. So now The lawyers are filing motions, and we have to have separate hearings that really have nothing to do with Trump in the election interference case. We have to divert from that for a second because Trump's people want to disqualify Fani Willis because of this relationship, and what they're trying to get her on is basically that her hiring Nathan Wade as the lead prosecutor on this case financially benefits her, and they're trying to directly link it to the trips that they went on. And this is kind of like the link that if Fani Willis is hiring Nathan Wade, he then gets a paycheck from Fulton County. And if they go on trips and Nathan Wade is paying for those trips, in turn, those trips are then gifts. Therefore, Fani Willis hiring Nathan Wade in the first place financially benefits Fani Willis. Does that make sense? Because they're going on trips together. They're saying that he's paying. Therefore, it's a gift to her. Very, 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 very weak. And I do not believe that she is guilty from financially benefiting from this situation because everything that they did, all the trips that they took, she ended up paying for her fair share, with the exception of one trip where Nathan Wade had a 50th birthday trip. I forgot where they went. Aruba, I believe. A cruise and then Aruba, if I'm not mistaken. And that trip was paid for by Fani Willis alone. So they're trying to say that she's financially benefiting, even though every trip and everything that they do together, even the lunches, if he picks up a lunch, then she picks up the next one. And then if he picks up another dinner, then she picks up a dinner. So it's like every dinner, every lunch, every trip, they've basically paid equal parts on these excursions. And so it's no way that it can be a gift. Right? That is then called a reimbursement. Therefore, Nathan Wade didn't give her a gift, didn't gift her anything when she paid for it, paid for it right back. And apparently there's a discrepancy about the cash, right? She pays for everything in cash. So it's not really no receipts, and they want to get receipts, but she doesn't really have a lot of receipts because she pays for everything in cash. Why does she pay for everything in cash? Because her father always taught her to have 6 months of wages in her house at all time in cash. So it's a whole thing. But it's really interesting. It's really interesting. My hope is that Fani Willis does not excuse herself or recuse herself. I think that's the term. And I do not want her to be disqualified. I do not believe that she's financially benefiting from her ex, I guess, romantic partner from being for being the special prosecutor on to the case. But the main reason why I do not want her to be disqualified or quit is because then another DA, if it's taken away from her office altogether, then another DA from another jurisdiction in Georgia would have to pick up the case, and they would have to pick it back up from scratch, and they do their own thing if somebody picks up the case, right? So there's a possibility that if the case doesn't stay with her, then the entire thing could fall apart. And I feel like this Georgia election interference case and the January 6th case could be the two criminal cases that actually prevent Donald Trump from being in office, right? So it's a mess. But them hearings, I know y'all probably saw the hearings. They were extra juicy. I mean, Fani Willis came in hot talking about it's a lie. It was all a lie. Okay, that was Fani Willis up on the stand. It's a lie. It's a lie. And I'm offended that you would suggest that I slept with him the first day I met him. And child, it was so... We learned so much about their personal lives and why she keeps the cash. And then they had the daddy on the stand talking about why she keeps cash, how Nathan Wade likes wine, but then she liked Grey Goose, and how they had arguments and essentially broke up because he feels like, what's the point of having a woman if he can't do for the woman? And then she feels like, I don't need a man for anything except for companionship. So they apparently broke up because they have different, opinions on gender roles. It's a mess. It's such a mess, and it's such a huge distraction. A part of me is upset with Fani Willis for even making this man one of the prosecutors on this case, but she says that she really didn't have a lot of options, and she went to a lot of lawyers and nobody wanted to take up the case because it's dangerous. When you decide to prosecute Trump, he has his MAGA people and they threaten you and they dox you and they expose you, and it's a lot of drama that comes with it. So we should be hearing about the case soon. So that's that. I cannot believe I spent 17 minutes, but I've been sitting on that. It's been in my head for a week. So Simon Guobadia, do y'all want to go ahead and talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta? Simon Guobadia is on Instagram again. So I'm gonna go ahead and put up the picture on Instagram, just some Housewives updates. Now he's golfing. So remember yesterday we talked about the fact that, you know, Simon Guobadia is denied citizenship because he had the bank fraud and the credit card fraud and the identity fraud and this fraud and that fraud and yada yada. And it's really interesting because I was reading the comments and a lot of you guys were upset with me because I was offended on behalf of Africans because a lot of the internet is being stereotypical and painting all Africans as scammers. So I'm just like, how y'all upset with me because I'm defending the Africans? I'm going to stop being Captain Save-A-Ho and I'm going to just, you know, if I'm not a part of the said group, I'll just let y'all handle it. Yeah, so they're denying him citizenship and whatnot because all of the fraud in the 80s and the 90s and the fake marriages and it was all a lie. It was all a lie like Fani Willis, okay? So then he posted that picture of him in the robe and a baseball cap and he was smoking his cigar like he always is. He needs to, you know, slow it down on the cigars. We know the lungs are black. And now he's on the golf cart again with this picture on Instagram and the song attached to it is James Brown Living in America. Okay, his geotag is good old USA. And his caption says, "Happy Tuesday to all who ever overcame and persevered in life. You are winning." Akilah and Kenya at the sample sale. I don't know if y'all really care about this, but I kind of feel like there's a possibility that Akilah, who kind of appeared as a guest of last season on the Real Housewives of Atlanta, I think there's a possibility that she might maybe be a cast member on season Sweet 16. And we've seen that her and Kenya Moore, who is her friend, have been hanging out a lot together. So I think this past weekend, if I'm not mistaken, or a few days ago, they had this sample sale, Versace sample sale all over TikTok and stuff like that. And Kenya and Akilah went, right? And they're just at the sample sale and they're shopping and they're doing them and they're having fun and they're being cute and they're being real life friends, which is cool. I saw in the comments, somebody said, "I need her on Real Housewives of Atlanta." Akilah responded and said, "And if so, just know I'm going to be wearing my new Versace stuff and don't you go reminding nobody that it was 80% off." So I thought that was an interesting tidbit. Let me know if you guys want to see Akilah. I felt like she was a bit quiet. I feel like, you know, as a friend of, and this, I think the friends from last year were perfect examples of what you want to avoid. To me, Manietta didn't do enough, and to me, Courtney did too much. And if you really want to cement your spot onto the show, you have to have a balance of doing just enough. So listen, you're going to have to get in there and really like make a name for yourself if you really want to be on the show. Okay. Speaking of girls who want to be on to the show, Kim Zolciak. So we talked about her not too long ago. And she posted this picture of her. She was filming and things like that. Well, I said, well, maybe it's a possibility that she's filming for the Real Housewives of Atlanta. I think her storyline would be interesting if she decides to be honest. Okay. Several people on Twitter were citing media takeout, and they were basically saying, confirming. Okay, it's media takeout. We know. We get it. Okay, I do not want to see a bunch of comments. Media takeout is not a credible source. Coming from all the people that believe all the bullshit and misinformation that they see on TikTok. But they do know, okay, they forgot how to cite sources. They forgot how to, they forgot what's a secondhand source and a firsthand source and a primary source and a secondary source. Okay. They don't know any of that. When they turn on the TV, when they turn on social media, they don't know what's a fact from an opinion. They don't know what's actual news from satire. Okay. But what they do know is that media takeout is not a credible source. People are citing media takeout, and media takeout, I guess, is allegedly saying that Kim Zolciak is back. But Carlos King, television producer, blogger, podcaster, okay, he is on Two Teasers in a Pod, and he basically said that he can confirm that Kim Zolciak will not be back. That there is no possibility. There will be no possibilities. All right. So that's that. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about that situation. Are you sad to see Kim not be there? Listen, I guess we're not going to know until they officially announce the cast. Moving on. Oh, and then Carlos King also says that he believes Kenya and Drew will be back. Okay. But no Marlo, no Sonya, and no Sheree. He says that he's happy to see Portia back. He believes that Kenya will be back. He believes that Drew will be back. But he did not mention Marlo, Sonya, and Sheree. Okay, who was about to win Traitors, if you ask me. Now, let's go ahead and talk about Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. Okay, this is a blind item from Bravo and Cocktails. Allegedly, with Girls Trip 5, the Ex-Wives Club 2 on the shelf. Okay, so if you don't know the tea, remember when they did Real Housewives? It was the second installment of Real Housewives Ultimate Girls Trip. They went to the Berkshires in Massachusetts at the, Dorinda Medley's mansion and whatnot, right? And they had Eva, they had Tamra, they had Vicky, they had Phaedra, they had all those girls. So this was going to be, they had filmed another season because it's been, Turks and Caicos was the first one. Then they did Ex-Wives Club in the Berkshires, which is the one that I'm talking about. Then they did Thailand. Then they did another Ex-Wives Club with Eva, Phaedra, but then they added like Alex McCord and Gretchen and all of those girls. We have not seen that one yet. And then they did Roni, which has already aired. Okay. So the one with Phaedra, Eva, Gretchen, Alex McCord, Caroline Manzo, Brandy Glanville, that one has been shelved because there's this looming lawsuit from Caroline Manzo. Caroline Manzo is suing the network Bravo, and she's also suing the production company and NBC Universal because I think it has something to do with like sexual harassment, sexual assault or harassment. And she's kind of blaming Brandy Glanville. That Brandy Glanville was too close for comfort, and I believe she's citing harassment or assault. So Bravo does not want to release the show because of this looming lawsuit. Okay, so y'all got that? All right. So listen, allegedly with Girls Trip 5 on pause indefinitely, Peacock and Bravo are rapidly casting for another girls trip to take the spotlight of Caroline's lawsuit. At the moment, the cast is consisting of one housewife from each franchise to prevent pre-established issues to manifest on another girls trip like Heather and Whitney on Salt Lake City and Girls Trip 3. So what they're saying is they're thinking about casting for the new girls trip, right? Which I love Girls Trip. A lot of people don't like them, but y'all should really watch them because they're really quirky. They're fun. They're lighthearted. A lot of the girls don't know each other, so it's a lot more lighthearted and fun, right? And so apparently, according to this blind item, they don't want to bring multiple women from one show. So I think in Thailand, they had Candace and Giselle ended up arguing about what had happened with Giselle saying that Chris made her go into the hotel room alone with him, right? On that same girls trip, Heather and Whitney were there in Thailand from Salt Lake City, and they were arguing about leaving the Mormon church and all of their bullshit. So I guess what they're saying is they don't want to put multiple women from the same show onto Girls Trip together because they don't want their previous season's drama to spill over to Girls Trip to rehash things that have already been hashed out on their respective shows. Okay, hopefully that makes sense, right? And they have a cast list, okay? So this is all rumors. From the OC, Shannon Bedore. From New York, Sonia, Legacy. Atlanta, Sheree. New Jersey, Margaret Josephs. Beverly Hills, Lisa Rinna. Miami, Adriana Demora. From Potomac, the Grand Dame, Miss Karen Huger. From Dallas, Leanne Lachlan, I think her name is. Is it Lachlan? And then Salt Lake City, Lisa Barlow. I would love to see a girls trip with Sheree and Karen. And you know what? I actually like watching Sheree in settings that don't involve the regular Housewives cast. Same with Phaedra. They're just much more lighthearted and funny. I love watching Phaedra and Sheree on Traitors. It's like the best thing ever. So again, if you're not watching Traitors, I don't know what you're doing. I feel like Sheree is a floater. And she really has no smoking gun. She doesn't know who. Well, there is a Twitter theory that says that Sheree knew that Phaedra was a traitor all along. And actually, I've been kind of reading up. Twitter has all the tea. Apparently, a lot of the cast members on Traitors already know who the traitors are. But the reason why they keep the traitors in is because it's better to have the same traitors throughout the season and then you can just banish them all at the end rather than banishing them once you find out that they're a traitor and then they get new traitors and then it's kind of like you have to figure out who's a traitor again, which I think is not great for television. Good for them, but not great for television, because I kind of feel like at that point, if the producers see that the cast members are doing that, then they need to kind of switch the shit up. In the same manner that I kind of feel like now that everybody pretty much knows that the traitors were Dan, Parvati, and Phaedra, and now we have a new traitor in Kate Chastain, I kind of feel like they need to throw in a twist because everybody knows that Phaedra is a traitor at this point. Like, if everybody knows the traitors, then it makes the show less interesting. Like, they should have forced Peter to be a traitor, or Trishelle, since they're the ones that know who the traitors are. Like, I don't know, just my opinion. Y'all let me know how y'all feel about that situation in the comments down below. I think that's all I had. Oh, Jaylan Banks. So remember yesterday morning, I told you guys about Jaylan Banks. So on or during our interview, he basically told his life story, which I thought was interesting. If you guys want to go back and watch the Jaylan Banks interview, I definitely will encourage you to do that. It's really good. But Jaylan Banks basically told us that his father used to go out, drink, come home, beat his mother, and that has contributed to his non-relationship with his father today. The father emailed me on the 19th and said that he doesn't like what Jaylan said, talking about how he used to beat his mom because he was drunk. He says that's BS, that he was never a drinker, and till this day, he does not drink alcohol, nor beer, nor wine. Well, I sent that email to Jaylan Banks for a comment, and then I also sent him some of you guys' comments because you guys were asking me, is it possible that Jaylan was referring to a stepfather? And I don't believe that's possible. I think this is the man that Jaylan is referring to, right? But I went ahead and texted Jaylan and said, yo, hope you're doing well. Any thoughts on this? He responded and said, LOL, he did not deny the fact that he used to beat her, which is true. He did not deny the fact that he was physically abusive to Jaylan's mother, but did deny the fact that he was an alcoholic. Even though Jaylan never said he was an alcoholic, he just said he used to go out and drink and then come home and be violent. So Jaylan kind of clocked his tea. And then Jaylan says, and he did drink. Do what you have to do, but I don't want him to get no clout from this. So I believe Jaylan Banks. I was skeptical, honestly, of him. But when he showed me that evidence of Fallon, I stopped questioning him. Okay? Fallon is violent. She was beating Jaylan up and some other members of her household. I'm going to just leave it at that. So when I saw that Fallon was violent, from that point on, I was like, okay, Jaylan, he's believable. I believe him. So what he says about the father, I believe. What he says about Fallon, I believe. I kind of believe everything he said in the interview. So y'all let me know how y'all feel about everything in the comments down below. Vote me Content Creator of the Year and YouTuber of the Year at the Boss Babe Awards. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to create a great day. Bye.